What happens when there are too many DMs at the table? Let me describe the situation. So my character is a Dragonborn Paladin with an Oath of Redemption. He's one of the main DPS in our party and wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's no saint by any means, but he always tried to do right by others, sometimes to his own detriment. He was essentially birthed by Tiamat to rampage and destroy, but he actually turned out good, even going so far as to take care of his siblings when his parents were burned at the stake for worship. So our party is descending into the 9 circles to essentially rescue the sorceress's twin brothers to help in the fight against Belial. Not even 5 minutes in, and Belial rips off my paladin's arm. I want to say first that, to be fair, my paladin was generally what many would call a broken character. He has a 19 in charisma, and thanks to boons given by dragon gods, a 23 in strength. That, and he can essentially morph into a dragon himself. I was mad at first, but I thought that this would be a good roleplay situation, showing that against the odds he could persevere. But then came a couple sessions later. So I want to state that at first, the campaign had a DM and a co-DM. The co-DM himself was pretty much a rules lawyer, and whenever he noticed something wrong, he would stop everything to figure it out and explain what we, or even the DM himself, did wrong. Keep in mind that he is also a party member. Somewhere a few sessions into the campaign, a couple of our friends joined the party, but also became co-DMs. So in total we have 3 DMs who are also in our party. One of them is pretty cool and would just explain what we did wrong, no big deal. The other 2, on the other hand, would honestly take some things to court if they could, from nerfing spells to lowering damage, all while throwing the worst that they can at us. I'd say it's a challenge, but now I feel like sooner or later a TPK is gonna happen and they'll just say, it's D&D, that's what happens. We've been doing this campaign for almost 2 years now, and along with therapy, D&D has become a source of relief for me. I'm not trying to say that we can't have a tough fight or have the odds against us, but if every session is just another fight against a monster who is going to trounce us, how do you expect to have fun? So a couple of sessions later, our party split into 2. My group consisted of my paladin, a co-DM's paladin, our friends, 2 wizards, and a barbarian. The party seems stable when we go to complete a fetch quest for a child in a village in Sloth. During a long rest, Bahamut visits my paladin, who claims that because of infighting with the party members who insult him on a daily basis, trying to fight Belial, and always rushing to fight when he sees evil, he has broken his oath. I tried to make a decent case against that, but in the end, my paladin was stripped of his oath powers and turned into an oath breaker when he was already down an arm. This was probably the first time I rage quitted in a game. I apologized the next session, and that's when the co-DM paladin hosted a side quest where we fought a 2-headed Cerberus. Aren't Cerberus supposed to have 3 heads? That created flame tornadoes. Not only that, but because we had taken a long rest in the Sloth realm, we ended up with level 2 exhaustion. Thanks to the wizard and her magic missiles, we barely made it by the skin of our teeth. We retrieved the trinket, fixed and painted it, then gave it back to the child. Now here's where things really hit the fan. Our party is basically on its knees, while the other party already reached the 3rd layer. We were almost out of spells, tired, and honestly not enjoying things as they were. We decided to head straight for Sloth himself to leave, but before that we decided to check out a church. We noticed that this was a church to Sloth himself and decided to leave, except for the co-DM's paladin, who decided to go inside. We all insisted that he should leave, but by the time he set foot in the church, a black mist wrapped around the church and we were only able to see but not speak to him since the mist was so thick. At first, it seemed okay when the worshippers agreed to let us see Sloth, but they had one condition, that if Sloth denied us, the Codium's paladin would serve him for eternity like them. That's when the paladin decided to outright insult Sloth in his church in front of his 6 specter worshippers. My paladin urged the 2 wizards to run and leave, but one of the wizards, who is essentially my paladin's best friend, convinced them to try and help the other paladin before writing him off. We made a legitimate effort to save him by breaking open the church's walls to make an exit point. Our wizard then launched a fireball that somehow all but one specter avoided, unfortunately hitting the paladin who was already being curb stomped. One of the wizards cast a mist cloud that covered the area. We then urged the paladin to take the chance and run, but he decided to stay. He stayed and fought 5 specters for almost 3 hours with us yelling at him up until he finally died and became a follower. We then made our way to Sloth, who had already fought against the other party and was already in a bad mood. We somehow managed to convince him to let us go, but he wanted the wizard, who was my paladin's best friend. I rolled well enough to convince him that he should take something else in return for burning his church. He decided to strip the wizard of all her belongings, staff included. He also said that while we could rest and get rid of the exhaustion levels when we leave, but she would not have the same benefit. So the last session of the year ended with our team exhausted, down a paladin, and on our way to the second circle. I want to reiterate that this is not a post to incite hate for anybody. I felt bad for even writing this. This campaign has been a source of fun and inspiration art-wise for me. I've made good friends because of it, but with my situation and 4 DMs who are out to get us while we play, it just became less fun. This sounds like a complete mess. There is literally no reason for that many DMs, and the fact that each of them fight each other makes things worse. There needs to be one person running the show, and if there is a co-DM for a large group, then they only need to be a supplementary role and not the one that has the final say. Even then, it might just make more sense to have 2 separate games at that point. You should never have 4 DMs. What do you all think about this situation?